Hello and welcome to an episode of the Coffee and Podcast. We are on a quest to cultivate freedom for victims of human trafficking, all while drinking really great coffee. I'm your host, Philip Clayman. I'm one of the co-founders of Three Tree Coffee in Statesboro, Georgia. And today I'm really excited to have Laura Weatherly on the show, who's a court specialist and the Hope Court coordinator for Hope Court. I'm very excited to dig more into this. They're an organization that serves minor victims of human trafficking in the Chatham County juvenile court system. During this episode, we're going to learn a lot more about our local juvenile judicial system, I should say, and how can this be leveraged to help identify and intervene with people who are in trafficking situations. I'm especially excited to learn more about this because I don't know very much about our judicial systems and how they work. So I'm just so excited to have Laura on the show and excited to get started. But before we get started, we always want to give a little bit of a warning that in episodes like this, we talk about more sensitive subjects regarding human trafficking. And so we just want to make sure that you are prepared to listen to topics that may be a little more weightier than normal. So with that said, let's go and dive right in. Laura, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm completely honored. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we always send our podcast guests a bag of coffee. And you and I had a little convo beforehand that you're not a coffee drinker, which is totally okay. But apparently there was a fight over this bag of coffee. Why don't you take it from there?
I want to say that it wasn't necessarily like a knockdown, drag out fight, right? I got the coffee. The person who basically runs our lobby and who brings in all the guests and everything said, "You got a package." And I said, and they asked me what it was. I don't get many packages in juvenile court. And so I said, "Oh, it's coffee from Three Tree Coffee." And the front desk lady said, "Oh, if you don't drink coffee, Laura, can I have it?" And so I was going to say, sure, of course. But then I had some Hope team members, my team, come behind asking questions about the coffee. And I said, well, it's Three Tree Coffee. And they all kind of started to argue over who deserved it more. And so I left. So I'm not really sure who ended up with the coffee, but it was great. I mean, I hope someone got it, and I bet it's gone the way we drink, the way the team drinks coffee. So thank you for the coffee.
Absolutely. So someone's enjoying good coffee, and hopefully no one was injured in the process.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Awesome. That's super fun. Well, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think we have a lot to learn from you about Hope Court, but let's start with you first. Just tell us a little bit about your background and who you are.
Sure. Well, again, my name is Laura Weatherly. I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I got my bachelor's in Grand Junction, Colorado at Mesa State University. And then I kind of moved around a little bit, kind of every year and a half. My first, big relationship was military. And so we bounced around, and very hard to kind of find your roots and decide what you want to do. I moved to Savannah, and that relationship ended, and I decided I was going to stay in Savannah, and met my current husband. We grew our family, and I got to start putting roots down. And ever since I can remember, I've always wanted to be in victim service. In fact, I had one of my high school best friends was a volunteer victim advocate, and I just wanted to help. And I knew, and that stuck with me in the moves, all across, that this is something I really wanted to do. When I got here, I kind of did a little bit of mental health work. I got my master's in teaching. I tried that a little bit, but I found that I was drawn a little bit more to the kids who were underserved. And I decided to get my master's in social work. And so while I did that, I had to do an internship, and I went to our local rape crisis center. It used to be called the Rape Crisis Center of the Coastal Empire. And now it's called Mary's Place. And I worked there for about 6 or 7 years as a victim advocate, sometimes a victim coordinator, and just fell in love with the work, just fell in love with it. So I was there for a while, and our presiding judge, her name is Judge Roxanne Formey, and I have been friends for about 10 years and worked on, kind of various human trafficking projects around Chatham County. And then she started Hope Court. And they quickly decided that they needed a full-time Hope Court coordinator. And I thought that this was probably the perfect place for me to be. And so I've been there for, I want to say 2.5 years now. And I love it. It's one of the things I really get to focus on the kids, and recovery and, watching them build lives so that they can have a brighter future. And so that's what I do here. I've got 3 kids, a dog, and we love sports. We're a big sports family. And so we do a lot of sports, NBA playoffs right now. So we're kind of watching that. But yeah,
do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite team in sports?
So I'm going to tell you that for football, it's always going to be the Broncos, the Denver Broncos, because that's where I'm from. My husband is from Minnesota, and so my default teams are going to be Minnesota. And so currently, right now, the Timberwolves are in the playoffs, and so they are my favorite right now.
And they've been very exciting. Nice.
It was a good game last night, so yeah.
Yeah, awesome. You mentioned, you referenced all the way back to high school, just level of, I want to help people.
Yes.
Where do you think that's just kind of who you are? Did you see something that prompted that, or did you just, did you have that kind of grown up in the home or cultivated in the home? What do you think kind of prompted that level of, I just want to help people?
That's a really good question. My friend from high school, I think, and when she became a victim advocate for their local victim service center in Colorado, just I watched her compassion and empathy grow so much. And so her whole kind of worldview and what she was doing for people who never had a voice. And she was the perfect person to do it, but I always wanted to do it. She was, fulfilled. It was rewarding for her in a way. And so I really wanted to do that. And I volunteered here and there, in my little tiny stays, but I really wanted to do that. My mom was a teacher. So I always saw her serving. We were, very involved in the church. So we served there. And but I really wanted to focus on this, on victim service. And that's where I really, really wanted to be. And so, yeah, I try and tell my little best friend from high school all the time that she's one of the biggest reasons I am where I am right now.
Wow, that's really nice.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing to also hear of just someone having a conviction in high school that they kind of follow through with the rest
It's
of their
weird.
career.
And I never thought I would. So this has been really cool.
I mean, that's amazing. I wanted to build roller coasters in high school, and that didn't pan out. But
I kind of wanted to do that too. So we're on the same page. But yeah, no, I think this is where I'm supposed to be.
Absolutely. Well, and it speaks to a level of just dedication to the mission as well. So that's really neat to hear. So now just give us an overview tell us more about Hope Court. What do they do?
Sure. So Hope Court stands for Healing Opportunities Through Positive Empowerment. And it's not complicated, but it's definitely, juvenile justice is complicated at times. Again, I think we were talking beforehand, I'm a social worker and a victim an advocate and all that stuff like that. So sometimes the judicial language and the judges and all that stuff, I have to learn. I have to really set forth to kind of get my little social worker brain to go that way. So Hope Court, I think what happened was within the juvenile system is that we were noticing, or they were noticing at the time, that we were getting a lot of kids who had history, evidence, or were high risk for being trafficked. And we use the word CSEC a lot, which is the commercial sexual exploitation of children. And so we were just noticing we're getting a lot of this. And a lot of this is kind of why the reasons these kids were coming into our court. We would have runaways or truancy stuff. And I think what we wanted to do was figure out what is this need that these kids are having, because we're seeing a lot that are showing signs that they are in unsafe situations. And so I think what Judge Formey and the team at that time decided to do was to make an incredibly trauma-informed court where we could bring together community resources to bridge the gap between services and systems. We wanted to protect these kids. We wanted to give them every avenue that they maybe did not have before or after the trafficking incident. But we also wanted to provide as much support as possible as they kind of maneuver life after being recovered from CSEC activity. And we knew we had to do that in a different way. It couldn't just be kind of the standard way that, any kid comes in. And so it started very small. And then we started recognizing that almost all of the kids that come through probably any juvenile court have been traumatized in some way. And so it's a lot of education. We had to kind of bring the people who knew about trafficking together. And so what we do is we just, we try as hard as we can to help our kids with their goals. So they've probably had some of these goals. I met a kid who wants to be a judge, and so, okay, so you want to be a judge, how can we get you there? And so, excuse me, if it's something as simple as like she doesn't like to go to school, we have to say, school is important if you want to be a judge, and so how can we get school to be okay for you? So we're taking these little problems, trying to solve them, and then move on to the next one, while also, giving them independence and voice and choice as well. So that's kind of what Hope Court does, kind of as a blanket.
Absolutely. So we have these children that are they are being accused of crimes, right? They're clearly on trial for something.
Right.
And this organization really looks to identify, wait a minute, let's step back a second and say, do they need to be criminally charged, or is there some sort of trauma or exploitation happening that's kind of outside of their control? To a degree, is that kind of what the organization is doing, trying to spot those situations?
You are very correct. And I think that Chatham County Juvenile Court does a good job doing that in a whole. So it's not just like little old Hope Court kind of over in the corner. Chatham County Juvenile Court right now is a whole trauma-informed court. And so what our main goal is for Chatham County Juvenile Court is we want to divert these families out of our system. We want to divert them out of having to come to court and having a probation officer or a case manager. We want to have them lead lives that they want to lead, but we want to help them as we can. Everybody needs a little help sometime. We want to make that non-judgmental. We want to make that something that is just normal to ask for help. And so the whole court is trauma informed at this point. We really want people to go to school and live their lives and be kids. And so we don't want them spending all their time in our courthouse, right? They don't want to do that either. And then we also, we decided too that even with our kids who are not trafficked or who don't have trauma, there's always a need. And so some of the behaviors that other people see, they think these are just really bad behaviors or that these kids are really bad, but there's always going to be a need that they can't either tell us or really like enunciate, or maybe they're embarrassed to tell us, that type of thing. And so our goals as like little Chatham County Juvenile Court people is to figure out what that need is, meet that need, and then move forward from there. And then what we've noticed is that once we do that, those behaviors are gone. And so that's kind of what this whole entire court does. So we have a couple of different specialty courts. Hope Court is one of those specialty courts. We have a mental health court for the kids called Spark. We have Anchor Court, which is the family treatment court. So, parents who are having a really hard time, maybe with their sobriety or some other stuff, and they're working really hard to get their kids back or keep their kids. That's called Anchor Court. That's amazing. We have specialized intensive probation, or SIP. So we have all of these wonderful little things where these kids can go and different things can happen. So that's kind of a really, really unique thing about Chatham County Juvenile Court.
It sounds incredibly organized, robust, kind of a whole holistic approach. And I guess my next question would be, do you think that's almost like more necessary because they're children, right? Or do you think it's kind of a big change across the board in the judicial system for minors and adults and everything? I guess I'm curious, do you think that's more of a necessary thing for them, for minors and for children? I
do. I think it's necessary in every juvenile court there is. And there are kids who have committed, some really bad crimes, right? And that some of that stuff can't be overlooked. But also, if we're throwing the kids in detention or, always being so punitive. And again, there's kids who have done some really horrible things and they have to take responsibility and accountability for that. But I don't know what we're teaching kids when we throw them, in a detention center. I don't know if we're teaching them skills to recover or to talk about their trauma or to talk about their goals. To me, this is just not the answer. And I feel like, Chatham County Juvenile Court, especially, Hope Court too, we don't like to do that type of stuff. I think that this should be how every juvenile court works. They're kids, they're kids, and we adultify our kids all the time, right? I think I was talking to someone today about when I grew up, my parents would, never let me miss school. And these days, the parents are having a hard time with kids going to school. And so we also have to realize, that these kids are going through an awful lot of stuff that we know nothing about. And so just being compassionate and kind can turn a lot of stuff around.
Yeah. Wow. How common is a Hope Court type program with other judicial courts? Is this kind of a movement that you're noticing, or is it kind of like, wow, Chatham County is really ahead of its time? Is this normal? So
it's not yet, and I will emphasize yet big. when Hope Court is the first of its kind in Georgia. So I think there's one other that's kind of starting up. There is a couple of courts that we followed. There's a Miami-Dade court, and then there's also one in Washington, D.C. that we kind of but we gather our information, watch what they do, and kind of, take some of the stuff and then make our own. There's some in LA, Nevada, Arizona. I think they are kind of popping up, these specialty courts that are more trauma informed. I know that we are very hopeful that we can bring some other judicial sectors together so that we can kind of talk about hope, what we see, challenges, celebrations, and maybe they will see the need as well. Maybe they will kind of have an aha moment like, oh, that's why all these kids are running away, or, oh, that's why this kid is potentially using or not going to school. And so we're hopeful that we are kind of helping, pave the way for other juvenile courts.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, so then about how many children does the Hope Court interact with on a day, a week, a month? And then how many of those cases usually end up being kind of more of this child is a victim of some sort of exploitation, or maybe they've just gone through really intense trauma, versus, no, this is probably more of just a convicted crime sort of situation. So how many do you see go through, and what percentage is more of the trauma situation?
So I think that's a really hard question to answer. I kind of am in my little bubble of hope within the court, so I'm not sure how many people like our court system sees. I think since Hope has been in a working Hope Court or working court, I want to say we've probably seen or had about 70 kids come through our court. Or probably, I think, I want to say about 70 kids have been referred, I want to say. Right now I have 15 kids on our docket. And we don't think it's ever gotten bigger than 15 kids on our docket at this point. But usually what happens is when a kid comes in, there's a complaint, right? So someone's made a complaint, whether it's a legal complaint, from law enforcement or from the Department of Family and Children's Services, or, school. It could be a complaint from anywhere. And so we have wonderful, amazing patient intake officers. So they are the ones that come out, take the complaint, process the complaint, and then we do some intake stuff with them. And there's a little bit of we inserted a couple of questions on some intake. And I'll tell you what some of those questions are. It's, does this child run away often? Does this child have more than one cell phone? Does this child have more goods than the parents know about? Like, where is this kid getting this new phone or this money? Does the kid have new tattoos? And you don't know, because apparently kids are getting tattoos early these days, but where are they getting these tattoos from? And so there's a whole kind of red flag question for the intake officers. And if there are some impressionable red flags for trafficking activity, then it usually comes to me. And so we process that. I process that, and we try and kind of figure out, is this trafficking? Is this not trafficking? And so then we kind of have a whole process. Sometimes it's long, sometimes it can be very short, but those kids need to be confirmed as a CSEC kid or a commercially sexually exploited child before they can be in Hope Court. And so we have to kind of determine that. And we use an agency called the Children's Advocacy Centers of Georgia, and they are exceptional in identifying and taking care of CSEC kids. And so after that, we kind of staff the kid and see if it's something that the kid and the family are interested in. And if they are, then we bring them right into Hope.
Wow, okay. And so some of these questions that the inbound officer is asking is really to identify specific signs of trafficking. So tattoos could be a sign of a mark that someone is using to brand almost, right?
Right. Yes.
The gifts, the free gifts could be kind of that false lover situation where they're sending tons of free gifts saying, hey, I love you, but it's really just masked, right? Masked love for exploitation. So
definitely.
These are sort of the questions that the inbound officer is asking directly to try and find out, is this trafficking?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So then these children, some of them are identified as, hey, they need to come to Hope Court. They're sent to Hope Court. And then what happens next from there? Are they then, how long? You said some processes are long, some are short, but what happens next?
So we definitely want to get to know the kid. We are, our Chatham County Juvenile Court has I believe almost everybody has been trained in TBRI, or trust-based relational interventions. Excellent if anybody wants to look it up. I use it personally and professionally. And so, what we do with these kids is we want to make a connection first, right? So we can't walk in and start trying to change their lives if they don't know who the heck we are. So we try and make the connections. And Hope Court has a huge multidisciplinary team, or MDT team, with experts in their own fields that come together to try and see if we can't meet these goals help these kids meet their goals. And so we try and connect with them. And then we also, we have court once a month for the kids, and that is just Hope Court. And Hope Court for us is very casual. And what we do is we get to meet them, ask them questions, introduce them to the team, see what their goals are, how we can help. And then they've got this big team, they've got their own attorneys, they've got a guardian ad litem, they've got probation, but in Hope Court we call probation case management. We wanted to kind of soften the language a little bit. We completely have rearranged our courtroom, only for Hope, and still paying respect to the judicial process in the courtroom. But we all sit, we don't sit in rows, and the judge actually does not sit on her bench, and she doesn't wear her robe. And we all kind of sit around. We make the courtroom into as much as a circle as we possibly can. We dress down and just kind of make it easy for the kids to come in. We want them to have some sense of felt safety when they come in and talk to us. And we meet and we talk about our celebrations, and we celebrate those celebrations big time, even if it's the smallest thing. And then we talk about the challenges and how we can take those challenges. We try and figure out that need, and then we try and see who's going to help meet that need, and then we go from there. So they've got a lot of people that are working with them. The kids sometimes are overwhelmed at the beginning, and we try and take it pretty slow as far as, who we all are. And, before the first court date, they get to hang out with me for a little bit, and we just kind of get to chat and get to know them. And then I explain Hope Court. And then they're with us. We have 3 phases. They move through them at their own pace. They're all about safety and independence and smart me and safe me. And then once they complete those at their own pace, there's an aftercare where we kind of leave them alone. And we just say, if you need us, you come tell us. We'll check in maybe every once in a while. And then after they've successfully completed aftercare, they've graduated Hope Court.
Wow.
Yeah.
I find that incredible at how this is awesome. How the court system is very much adjusted so that the message can be heard, and maybe more importantly, so that trust can be built.
Yes.
And I say that because communication 101 is it's not about what's said, it's about what's heard.
Yeah.
And I imagine in normal court settings, I'll fess up. I got a citation when I was younger driving.
Right.
I had to go to court. It was terrifying. I'm so overwhelmed. And you go into a shell, right? You don't really operate like yourself because you're just scared.
It's scary.
New, it's different. There's language you don't understand. And that's amazing that y'all really set the tone to be one that's saying, hey, we want to make sure you hear the message and that you feel like this is a safe place because we're really here for you.
Yeah, and we just let them talk, we have some kids who come in and tell us all the problems in the world, and so we want to take those problems because they're problems to the kids, right? They might not be problems to us as adults, but they are the problems for the kids. And so that's important to them. And I don't think that the adults in a lot of our kids' lives really pay attention to the problems that our kids are presenting. And so we need to help them with that. But we also want to, also depending on the age, want to make sure that they're on their own level of independence and that they can take care. So sometimes that's just us helping them set up things, like a bank account or getting their ID or, help them apply for jobs. It's simple things, that we can help. But, to the kid, it seems overwhelming and almost a nightmare. And so, as adults, we've been around a little bit longer, so we can tell these kids, like, we can help you with this. So watch how this is not that scary. So we really want them to feel safe and kind of relaxed when they come in. And we have snacks and drinks and fidgets and whatever, they need. I've got I think it's a bear in my office. It's a weighted bear. And so if they come in and they're a little emotional, we've got that for them if they need to hug the Hope Bear. And so we just try to make them feel like this is really about them. Because in their other hearings, because, even if they are a Hope kid, they still might have judicial or, issues that are kind of going on. They may have done a delinquent act. So they might have said, you're going to be on probation for 12 months. So they still have to follow the probation and they still have to, come to court for those type of hearings. And that's different. The judge is on the bench. The judge is in a robe. We're all sitting in rows. We're very quiet. And so we just want to make this not scary. And sometimes that helps their other court cases to not be that scary either.
Wow. Amazing. I would guess, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would guess that in a lot of these situations, there is maybe some brokenness in the home or not just great parental care or love. I'm sure it's not exclusive, right? Like that they're all like that, but I imagine a majority are. So I guess my question would be, how involved are the parents in the Hope Court system? And have you seen that have any sort of effect on the parents as they maybe witness the approach that Hope Court takes for the children?
It's that's an interesting question and a really good question because you're right. I mean, we also, Chatham County Juvenile Court also deals with what we call a dependency case. So that means when the child is either, the child and the family come into contact with the Department of Family and Children's Services. We'll say that. So there's different levels that happens. And so we do have those where the family life is not that great and the parental structure is not that great and the parental support is not that great either. And so this is kind of causing, the families to fall and to be in a whirlwind. And so we want to support the families because kids can't do it. We've got to help these kids, and so the parents do too. We do have parents that are very involved. They come to every court hearing. They talk to our case manager or probation officer. They talk to the team. They have their own lawyers in court too. So if they have questions or concerns, they can speak to their lawyer without worrying if that's going to get them in trouble or if they should say that in court. And so we welcome the parents to come. If they're appropriate parents, we would love for them to be a part of their kid's life. And if there's parents that are not, then we try and include foster parents or the group homes, or even we have a wonderful, right now we have this great little group of our, Department of Family and Children's Services caseworkers that we're all really focused on, trying to get these kids back together, reunification with their parents. So we try very hard to include the families as much as possible, and it's always open for them as long as everything's appropriate and they're working towards those goals. Then we love the parents because we want to help the parents too. What are they struggling with? Is it the mental health part of this? Is this is your mind still trying to get wrapped around the fact that your kid has been confirmed as a trafficked kid? Like, how can we help you? Do you need education? Can we set this up for you? Can we show you how to do it? So we love it when our parents come. And we definitely celebrate them too. If there's something that needed to be celebrated, we do that as well.
Awesome. I'm clearly there wouldn't be specifics, but are there situations where the parent is the one that's actually trafficking the child?
So I think there's been a couple that I am aware of in the past. I know that I know familial trafficking is kind of on the uptick. And a lot of the times, the kids don't really know that that's what it is, so it doesn't get reported until later. And that's not something that I see often at all. I know back when I was at the local RCC, when we would get our CSEC kids and need some advocacy, I know I had a couple, I believe, that did express that had started at that age or had started, but I don't see that as often with my Hope kids.
Wow. Okay. Well, I appreciate you just opening up some of the world of Hope Court. Who's coming through? What is it like? I love how you set the tone of just the courtroom itself and what does that look like? You mentioned 3 phases that the children go through. Could you just briefly explain each of those phases that they go through to kind of graduate or make it through this program?
So we really want what all of these phases do is we really, really want the kid to know that their safety is our priority. No matter what else it is, we are always concerned about their safety. And so those phases, first it's like, what do I need to do to be safe? What does my team need to do to be safe? And how can I continue to be safe when I am independent? And that's kind of what we try and lead up to. We want to make sure that those goals that we can help them and that we need to help them with are kind of done in the first phases. And then as we kind of move through the phases, it's like, if the kid calls us and says, hey, I'm having a hard time with this application, then, for job or for McDonald's or somewhere, then we can say, okay, tell us what your problem is, and then tell us how you think you could solve it. So we kind of start without us kind of sort of helping and doing things, and then like leading these kids to a more independent me. And we just want them to understand that their safety is, paramount to them being successful and to them being happy and to them, leading meaningful lives in the community.
Absolutely. Okay. You've been doing this for, I think, 3 or 4 years now? I think you said
2021 2021, I think the end of 2021 with Hope Court. Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. What has been one of your greatest challenges in advancing Hope Court's mission?
That is another good question. And I thought about that long and hard. I think the biggest challenge that I encounter, and there's a lot that you can kind of list. I think there's a lot. The biggest one is the lack of education for our community. The lack of education on what trafficking is, how it is just running rampant in our world. People think that CSEC or, child sex trafficking is a kid walking home from school in a white van and them being kidnapped and taken somewhere, or, kids being brought over to the ports, because the port in Savannah is a big deal. It's one of those things with a lot of traffic. People think these kids are like crossing these state lines, or they're, stuck in a hotel for weeks. While all of those things are very true, and we are seeing, more of that, the majority of our kids are being trafficked by people they know. They think these people are safe. These kids are, and remember, they're kids, right? And so they think these people are going to take care of them. It's going to be better than the life that they've lived. And so they think that this might be a safe situation. And so not only, it's hard to educate kids on what CSEC is. I think, there's people out there that try and talk to kids about online safety and healthy relationships and stuff like that. But a lot of times our kids just don't see that this is unsafe. And some of these kids feel like this is kind of a normal thing, that this is just normal. This is what people do. And so that's even just on the kid side, right? But like, even when I talk to people about, CSEC or, kids being trafficked, certainly I have seen kids that have been trafficked over state lines. Certainly I have seen kids who have been trafficked from California all the way to Savannah. But I also see these kids who are, trying to find some acceptance and trying to find someone who will accept them as who they are. And sometimes parents aren't very good at that sometimes. And so the traffickers will find them, because they will be in a vulnerable position, and it'll just be, they'll think they can offer this kid the world. They'll tell the kid they're going to offer them the world. So the kid goes. And then unfortunately from there, we're in a recovery stage or a rescue stage at that point. But I think a lot of people think that it's the movies, and we're dealing with these, national news and stuff like that. And we're not, we're dealing with kids who are running away and finding people that are initially accepting them. And then in order to latch onto that and hold that, they stay in a really crappy situation, because they think that they're going to get that 5 minutes or that, admiration or love or that compassion from this person. And so in order to get that, they'll do whatever they need to do. So that's kind of more what I'm seeing. But I think that's the thing that is the biggest challenge for me, is trying to explain that it can be something as little as an adult, forcing the child to do acts that they don't want to do, and then giving them food after. So that's trafficking. The child received goods for sexual acts. And that's something that's very hard for everybody to wrap their arms around, because that's very simple. It's a simple thing. And that's the education that I think, parents need, the courts need that, law enforcement. And so that's my biggest challenge, is the education of, and the world's not over afterwards. When recovery comes and the, children and the kids, they really want to put in the work to live their best life and to achieve their dreams. They can do that. They can. And so we want to make sure that, this is a bad situation and it happened to you and it's never going to go away, but you can learn to put one foot in front of the other and save this world. I definitely believe that, again, cliche, the kids are our future. And so we need to put effort and love and compassion and trust into them. And the only way we can do that is to support them right now.
Absolutely. I think there was something just so profound that you said as well. And that's, when you think about kind of maybe the movie style of trafficking and that abduction style, it's very much there was life as one way and then it suddenly changed to another way. And something that you shared was, well, in a lot of situations you see, it's an upbringing. It's a worldview. It's everything they maybe really know. And how can you know something different if you don't know something different, right?
Yes.
And so just recognizing that if the issue or the problem came that slowly and over a long period of time, the solution is probably going to take a lot of time as well, right?
It does.
there's just a lot that has to be nurtured and changed
Yeah.
and helped and loved. I just think that's incredibly profound from what you've shared. So then I guess let's kind of turn it sort of hopeful.
Okay.
Well, and you kind of did at the end, right? Like that you've seen stories where this turned and it changed, and they can come out of this, right? I guess for you, how do you stay hopeful, right? You share with us, how do you stay hopeful? Because I'm sure you're seeing trauma regularly.
Yes.
I'm sure that's burdensome. So how do you stay hopeful?
It's a really good question, and I think that I think my team, I think the Hope Court team, really tries to pay attention to each other and ourselves. I stay hopeful because, again, like Hope Court, I celebrate the small stuff. If we all, threw up our hands and, wailed in the back, parking lot of a juvenile court when something bad happened, we're not going to get anything done. And I used to do that when I first started at Hope Court. We'd have a kid who would be missing from care or run away. And I would just, wander around and be like, oh, I can't, this kid's missing. I don't know where this kid is, and bang my head against the wall and lose sleep. And then you just have to realize, that this is part of this work, and running away for our CSEC kids is a survival skill. It's not a behavior. It's a survival skill. And so I'm hopeful, that our team together, we all collectively try and take care of each other as well. I've seen some of these kids do incredible things. Like go to school, finally they haven't been to school. Something's wrong with school. We figure out that need. We move them to school, and then they graduate, which we didn't even think was going to happen. So that's the little tiny things that these kids show us, these little, initially, these wonderful little sparks of what an amazing human they are and how amazing they're going to be as an adult. And that's hopeful for me. I have Judge Formey and I have been friends for a while now, professionally working together. We have a really good working relationship. And I do find myself back there in her chambers sometimes, moaning away about how this is not good, and we're not doing anything. And she just reminds me we are. It's small, you can't see it, but we are really doing wonderful things here. And then I guess shout out to my family. I can't. My house is full. I've got a lot. There's kids and my husband and a dog, and it's where this place making sure that my house is where I can go and not have to sit and relive or wonder. It's a mindset that you have to do. Again, the team is amazing and picking each other up, but I just know that these kids are going to come through this. They're going to figure out their goals and their worth, and that we all love them. I think Judge Formey makes a joke every time I come into her, and I'm like, I got a new kid for us. And then I start telling her about her, and at the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're just going to love this kid. I love this kid so much. And she's like, you say that about every kid. And I'm like, I do, because they're amazing. They're just amazing kids. Do they frustrate us? Of course, but they're kids. So what do we expect? We cannot expect perfection from them. And so those are a couple of the wonderful things. But it's the Hope team. It's that we all have one goal. It's to help these kids, and we're all going to do it together, but we also take care of each other as well.
Well, the work y'all are doing is absolutely incredible, and I'm so grateful that there's people that are doing this and investing in the next generation in ways that a lot of other people can't. Right?
Right.
It's what y'all do is very unique, but it seems like it's very needed.
Yes.
And you've done an awesome job of just unpacking Hope Court, what you do, and things like that. So then, I just mentioned not everyone can maybe help in that way, but maybe people can. So my last question to you is for our listeners, if you could give them any piece of advice on how they can get involved in the anti-trafficking movement or just that mission, what would your advice be?
So it was very interesting. I asked this question to my family, and what would I say? There's a lot of different ways you can contribute. I believe that at one point you had someone on from Tharros Place. I would champion anybody within our local Chatham County or even outside of Chatham County to look up Tharros Place. Tharros Place is a residential treatment program for female youth who have been trafficked. and who are either in, the department's care, or they are not in care and they can't be at home for some reason. And they're they're brand spanking new, but they're an amazing facility. And that is an incredibly tangible way to give back. I know they have done some wonderful things where, they have birthday parties for their residents, and so any type of way, even if it's $5 or $10 to Tharros Place, I think that's really incredible. And they're just going to be such a wonderful added aspect to our community for our CSEC kids. The biggest thing, and I'll say this, my 16-year-old Noah, I asked him this question, and it made me tear up a little bit. But he said, the biggest thing you can tell people is to give everybody grace. Make sure everybody gives everybody grace. And so I'm going to hop on top of what Noah Weatherly said. And I'm going to say, the ultimate thing that we can do, it makes me teary because it's so easy. The ultimate thing that every single human can do is be kind. That's it. I don't, give to Tharros Place. Everybody's more than welcome to reach out to me. We're a judicial court, so we don't ask for things, and we don't, we cultivate that on our own. But I love Tharros Place. But I think the biggest thing that everybody can do is just be kind and give everybody grace.
Oh, wow. But powerful advice from Noah. So tell him thank you.
I will. I definitely will tell him.
And just having a level of empathy. I mean, once again, y'all are clearly putting yourself in the shoes of the children and saying, what would it be like to be in their situation? So let's show them grace. Let's show them kindness. Let's show them love. And as you said, small changes, but as someone once shared with me, don't despise the day of small beginnings. And
exactly.
Can make a big difference. So,
exactly.
Wow. Well, Laura, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was really helpful for me to understand. And we've met with Hope Court before, but it was just really eye-opening for me to know and love what y'all are doing. So just thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And if I can ever, do anything again or help out in any type of way with Three Tree, I would love to. Again, thank you so much. This was an incredible experience.
Awesome. Well, and to all of our listeners, thank you for listening. You should go check out Tharros Place. If you're in the Pooler, Chatham County area, they do take donations. They have volunteer opportunities that you can be doing there, so be sure to check that out. I want to remind you all that we donate $1 of every coffee bag sold to safe houses, and Tharros Place is our primary recipient of that, but we do support other safe houses as well. And so if you've been purchasing our coffee, thank you. If you haven't, I encourage you to give it a try. And nonetheless, we're just so grateful that you've been listening in, and I want to thank you for helping us cultivate freedom.